Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. Yesterday, I recorded a long video, and because of problems with my webcam, part of the audio didn't come out. So I'm redoing the video now. So just bear with me. So a couple of days ago, I saw a video on Buzzfeed. This video has gone viral. The title of the video is 27 Questions Black People Have for Black People. And I'm going to read some of the questions and I'm going to respond to some of the questions in this video right here. First of all, it's important to note that many of the questions were based on ignorance and stereotypes. And it's a damn shame that you had Black people actually participate in this video making these ridiculous questions or asking these ridiculous questions. So I'm not going to even address those because all they did was feed into negative stereotypes again. I'm going to address the questions of substance, the questions that really matter. And the first question is this: why is growing up without a father so common within our race? Number one, it's not as common as many people think. There's a popular stereotype that the black man is absent from the family, that the black man has no involvement with his children. And the fact of the matter is, that's just simply not true. Even when the black man is separated from his family, like if there's a divorce or the relationship ends with the mother, many black men, a significant percentage of black men are still actively involved in their children's life, despite all the negative stereotypes that you hear out here. In the description box of this video, I will include a link to an article that points this out, citing studies that prove that black men are actually more involved in their children's lives than other groups of men. So I want you to check out that story. In terms of the question of why we have so many single parent households or why divorce is common in the black community. Now, that's a completely different question. And from what I understand, they did not ask that question in that video. And I will include a link to that video so that you can see the entire video for yourself. It's really a short video where people ask all these questions. But that's an important question. And there are a variety of factors that lead to the breakup of black families and relationships and all that kind of stuff. But that's a very important issue that needs to be addressed. And I frankly don't have an easy answer as to why our families are in disarray. Without a strong, solid family, you can't have a strong community. So we really need to think about ways to rebuild the black family, to rebuild black relationships. Because we even see that played out here on YouTube. We see the tension between men and women on YouTube. We see men and women arguing back and forth, where you have men putting out all these videos bashing black women. And it's gotten to a point where women are actually putting out videos bashing black men. You can't have a strong or productive and powerful community when the men and women hate each other, when the men and women run to other races for comfort and for peace. That's a situation of chaos. But, the core point that I want to raise is this. Again, the black man is not absent from his household, even though you have separations and divorces and all that kind of stuff. So the second question that I want to focus on is this. They ask, why do you chant Black Lives Matter and then tear each other down in the next breath? First of all, that question is really silly because Black Lives Matter is not about some personal dispute that you have with somebody where you get into personal arguments. All races of people have disputes and arguments amongst themselves. All people have problems getting along a lot of times. And the suggestion that black people just don't get along at all, I think that that's overblown, it's exaggerated. We're like any other group of people. We have people that we bond with, and we have people that we disagree with. So the notion that, disputes and all that kind of stuff is some major issue in the black community, it's just not true. And to compare some personal dispute to the issues that Black Lives Matter is confronting is just nonsensical, because Black Lives Matter is addressing the problem of police brutality in our communities. That's a systemic problem that has been with us from day one. From the moment they created the police, you had the problem of police brutality. In fact, the police were created to track down runaway slaves. And ever since then, the police have been giving the black man and woman hell in this country. They have been killing black people with impunity. They kill black people and they get away with it. Many times they're not even charged, and when they are charged and they're actually brought to trial, often they get off. So the issue of Black Lives Matter is vital, and it's really silly to compare that to some personal disputes. So let me move on to the next question. And there are some questions about interracial dating that I really won't focus on in this video, because I've done other videos about those subjects. And, I encourage you all to check those out. And I may put a link or a card up here so that you can see those videos, because I don't want to rehash things that I've already talked about. But here are some questions that I want to talk about now. And those are these questions. Why do some black people say you're pretty for a dark-skinned girl? And then a follow-up question that is similar is, why do you think people with light skin look better than people with dark skin? And those questions are really tied together. First of all, we got to look at the source of the problem. As I said in other videos, somebody taught us to hate ourselves. When we were in Africa among our own, we didn't hate our dark skin. We didn't hate our dark features. We didn't hate our African features, our nose, our hair texture, our lips. We didn't hate those. We saw ourselves as beautiful. We saw those as natural, wonderful features. It was when we were brought to this country as cargo, as slaves, when we were abused and oppressed and exploited mentally and psychologically and physically, when we were taught to worship that white man, when they gave us a white God to worship, and they told us to abandon our faith, and they stripped us of our identity, stripped us of our culture, of our religion, of our natural customs. Over the years, we have been programmed to worship that white man. They elevated lighter skinned black people over darker skinned black people. They taught the lighter skinned people that they were somehow better than the darker skinned people. And that legacy of colorism is with us today. They fed us a diet of Little Black Sambo and Tarzan and minstrel shows, and we were bombarded with these images of black people as minstrels with pitch black skin and big, huge red lips and big, bulging white eyes. So those images, after being beaten over the head with those images, after constantly being bombarded with these images, constantly being taught that we're a race of savages with no civilization, no culture, no history, taught that our hair was ugly, our noses were ugly, our lips were ugly, our skin was ugly. Eventually, we began to internalize the hatred of the oppressor, and we began to turn inward, turn that hatred inward towards each other. So we created our own little system of oppression in our community, where you had these light-skinned black people, these mulattoes, these mixed black people being elevated, being celebrated. They had brown paper bag tests and all that kind of stuff. And that psychological damage, that horrible legacy is with us today. You hear it in the music. You hear these rap artists singing about how they love a black, light-skinned woman. They talk about how, I heard this one rap artist talk about how a black woman would look more beautiful if she was light-skinned. And they use the term red bone and all that kind of stuff. And you see it in these videos where these guys, the only women featured in their videos most of the time are very light women. Most of these celebrities and entertainers are with very light women. So they see a beautiful dark-skinned woman as some kind of exception to the rule because they've been programmed, they've been taught to worship whiteness. And that programming starts young. We've all seen the footage of children being asked, which doll is the most beautiful doll? Which one is the ugly doll? They have a black doll and they have a white doll. They're asked about the ugly doll, they point to the black doll. When they're asked about the beautiful doll, they point to a white doll. And that programming starts young when we're told about fairy tales, when we're told about Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, Rapunzel, and all these other white images, where the white woman is viewed as some kind of elegant, beautiful, precious little creature to be desired, to fight for, to protect, and all that kind of stuff. That programming runs deep into our psyche. So you do have all these many black men that prefer light women, many black men that have even gone even further to actually prefer white women. So the psychosis runs deep. So that's why you have those problems. And I also want to talk about some other questions that they raised. They asked, do we really believe that black is beautiful? Or is that just something that people say to sound cool? I really think that many of the people who say black is beautiful actually believe it because they are coming into a new consciousness. They are resurrecting their self-respect, their pride, and their dignity. So they are coming to understand and they're coming to embrace who they are. They are accepting their own and they are being themselves. Black is beautiful is a reality that many of us have embraced. But for some people, despite, the appearances of having some kind of black pride, many of them don't really have black pride. When you go to the core of who they are, it's apparent that they don't have that real pride. You have people who talk about melanoid nation this. They talk about the power of melanin that. But these same people, they're quick to call a dark-skinned black person black or burnt or crispy and other kinds of derogatory terms. So we have a long way to come as a people, even among the so-called conscious community, because again, that psychosis, that psychological trauma runs deep, and we need to heal ourselves from it. And the first way to begin the healing process is to proclaim our pride and our self-respect, to proudly say that we're black and beautiful, to proclaim that. And on my Facebook page, I regularly post pictures of beautiful black women to tell the world that black is beautiful. Many of these other people, they understand that black is beautiful. And it's time for us to embrace that. You got these women that alter their features so that they can look like the black woman. They enlarge their lips so that they can look beautiful like the black woman. They enlarge their hips so they can look beautiful like the black woman. They even tan themselves so that they can look beautiful like the black woman. They even emulate the black woman's hairstyle because they know that black is beautiful, and it's time for us to know that and appreciate the black woman And it's time for the black woman to appreciate and love the black man and respect the black man. Now, they asked a couple of other questions, and I'm just going to talk about some of these questions. One question is, why do we call each other the N-word but get vehemently upset when a white person uses the N-word? Now, I want to talk about that, and I know that this subject has been discussed over and over again, but I just want to answer this question. We all know that the word nigger is a term of oppression. It's a word that is not our own. It's a word that that damn white man invented to humiliate us, to degrade us, to dehumanize us. It's a word of hate. And when the white man used it, he used it for those purposes, to oppress us verbally and psychologically. So when the white man uses that word, it's tied to that legacy. I don't care if the white man claims to be from the hood or claims to embrace so-called street culture or stereotypical black culture. Because of that legacy, it will never be acceptable for a damn white man to call a black person a nigger. And you have this one white guy here on YouTube that does this because he thinks he's some kind of honorary black person with a black past. But to hell with that. It's never acceptable for a white man to use that word. See, in black people, again, we use the word and we use it because it's something that has been imposed upon us. And we took the word and we remixed it, changed it slightly, the pronunciation of the word. And many of us have used the word not in the same way as the white man uses it. We use it in a different way, in a different context, and it has a different meaning, despite the history of the word. So when black people use the word, they could be using the word to describe a man versus a woman. They call men niggers. Um, that's one example of it. And then it's just a term of endearment, like A Tribe Called Quest pointed out in their song titled Sucker Nigga. Even though we use the term as a term of endearment, and also it can be used as an insult as well. But when a black person uses that word, we can't sit here and pretend like it has the same impact or same effect as when a racist white person uses the word, because it simply doesn't. It doesn't mean the same. It's a completely different context, and it has a different effect. But I do believe that we need to stop using the word. We need to quit embracing the terminology of our oppressor. So that's what I have to say about that. And I want to read off a couple of more of the questions that are asked. So one question is this: why are we so quick to support a non-black owned business, but hesitant to support a black owned business? Again, this goes back to the programming that many of us suffer from. We've been programmed to accept the myth and the lie of white supremacy. So many of us have been taught to assume that the white man is better at certain things than the black man. We're taught that the white man's ice is colder than the black man's ice. Many of us have been programmed to think that the white man is more intelligent, more capable, more skilled than black people. So that's why you have many black people who will go to a white lawyer, a white Jewish lawyer instead of a black lawyer, because they assume that a black man is not up to the task. They assume that a black man doesn't have the skills. And they do the same thing with respect to doctors. They say, well, let me not go to a black doctor. Let me find a white doctor because a white doctor is smarter. because we have bought into the lie. We've embraced it. Many of us embrace the lie that white man is somehow better than us, somehow more worthy than us. You have black people who have, um, they live in a neighborhood where a movie theater, for instance, is close by. But they will pass over the movie theater in their own neighborhood to go all the way to the suburbs, miles away, so that they can be next to white people. Because they've been taught to worship these people. They've been taught to idolize these people. And as long as you have that kind of view, you will remain the servant of these white people. You will remain their damn footstool as long as you worship these people. As long as you don't have any self-respect and pride and dignity to accept your own, embrace your own, and support your own. All these other communities accept their own and embrace their own. You go to the black community, and often it's hard to find a black business. That's another issue. You have a black community where you have a black mayor, you have a black city council, but when you look in the black community, you don't have black businesses. You may have a few here and there, but for the most part, it's some Arab selling you something. It's some Asian selling you something. It's some white man selling you something. If it wasn't for those other people, we wouldn't even be able to provide for ourselves. That's how dependent we are on these foreign people, on these non-black people for everything. Just like, I mean, that puts us in a child-like position. That puts us in a servant-master type of relationship. And we need to break those shackles by accepting our own and supporting our own and doing for ourselves. So let's see if there are any other questions that I want to discuss in this video. Okay, here's one. They said, why do black people have to say, I have Native American in my family to seem interesting? You hear this a lot in the black community. And in one respect, for some people, it's true because of our history. You know, many of us have Native American in our family. We may have European in our family, or you know, this ethnicity or that ethnicity, and those are legitimate things. Like, people should recognize their heritage, even if it includes Native Americans or even Europeans or whatever. But the problem is this. Many of us have bought into this idea that somehow being black is a negative thing. Somehow being African is negative. So what we do is we cling on to anything that's non-African. We may have a drop of Native American in our blood. And, you know, some of us have been so brainwashed, so psychologically damaged, that we will cling on to that drop and reject the majority of our identity. We will cling on to that Native American heritage, or even invent it if we don't even have it. That's just how messed up some of us are. Some of us would rather be anything but African. You have people on here saying that they're Native Americans and they're not African. You have people even denying that there was a transatlantic slave trade. Here on YouTube, you have that. That's common. That's how lost some of these people are. They would rather claim to be Hebrews. They would rather be Arabs. They would rather be Moors. That's why you have black people running around dressing in desert clothes with turbans on and all that kind of stuff, because they have lost any sense of pride, any sense of dignity about themselves. So that's, you know, part of the reason why some people cling to that. And I heard, you know, the other day I heard this YouTuber brag about how she had this heritage and that heritage, and how she was somehow better than other black people because she had some mixed heritage somewhere down her bloodline. But that's the mentality of people. And again, that goes back to that colorism thing, you know, that whole legacy. where light was viewed as right and all that kind of stuff and superior. But yeah, I think that's about it. So I want to hear what you have to say about this. Again, I'll post a link to the video that I referenced and to a couple of articles so you can read this for yourself. So please rate, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what you think. Peace.